folks at BlackPac commissioned pollster Cornell Belcher to do a poll showing where Black America stands in the first 100 days of the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief, Donald the Con Big Ankles Trump, and their results speak very loudly in terms of how we feel. Adrianne Shropshire is the executive director. She joins us right now of BlackPac. Glad to have you here. Yeah, we just call it what it is. Everything I said is factual. So let's go right to it. Adrianne, what jumps out at you in this poll?
A lot. I think one of the things that stood out to both me and Cornell really is the mood of Black folks in this country right now. The numbers are striking and I would say historic. We have, something like 85% of the Black voters that we surveyed saying that they are dissatisfied with the direction of the country, 75% saying that the economy is getting worse. Almost no one believes that the economy is getting better, maybe 5% of the folks that we talk to. Donald Trump's numbers are at historic lows. 84% of the voters we talk to disapprove of him. With 72% of those people strongly disapproving of him. The numbers for Republicans in Congress are in the exact same place as his numbers. We've been polling, I think we talked about this before, we've been asking folks over time what they think is the single greatest threat to the Black community, and time again, and including this time, Black say that the presidency of Donald Trump, this second term, is the single greatest threat to the Black community. But we also see, as you alluded to, some numbers that should concern the Democratic Party. We see a majority of Black voters disapproving of the Democratic Party right now. We see when we ask folks how do they feel about the Democratic Party, we see the numbers being down across the board, sort of regardless of demographic within the Black electorate. And that includes the numbers being down with boomers and the numbers being down with Black women. And when you have those two numbers going down, then you know that the Democratic Party is in trouble.
What are they saying specifically about the Democratic Party?
I mean, I think they're saying what we're hearing from lots of people, but maybe more strongly. They're saying they don't believe that that the Democratic Party fights for the issues that are important to the Black community. They say they think they are not showing up as fighters. They don't see them as strong. They see them as weak in this moment. People want generational change, which came through in the polling. And I think that there is this, when we look at the kind of postmortems and memos and strategy memos that we're seeing come out from some Democratic circles or circles within the Democratic Party right now saying that, Democratic candidates need to just talk about economic issues. They need to talk about bread and butter issues. They just need to focus on the economy. I think Black voters in this poll, but also in some focus groups that we did earlier in the year, really reject that. Like, of course, people care about the economy, but they also care about other issues, right? They care about the rise in racism, right? They care about what seems like a loss of economic and educational opportunity. They care about the Supreme Court rolling back in our rights, or not even rolling them back, eliminating our rights. And they want Democratic candidates who are going to speak to that. They don't want a candidate who is just going to show up and reduce everything that matters to us to just dollars and cents.
Also here, key takeaway, go to my iPad. It says Black voters overwhelmingly reject the idea that the fight against ICE and deportations, quote, isn't our fight. The majority of Black voters are not, in fact, in a mood to pull back and disengage in the line of fire, but rather are anxious about the best ways to engage. And that's really, frankly, saying something to a lot of our legacy civil rights groups. They've been demanding they engage, but folks are saying, hey, we need a plan of action to know how to engage.
I think that's right. And I want to jump to that first point that you made. We asked this question because we were deeply concerned about what we were seeing on social media in terms of accounts, allegedly Black accounts saying things like, people are being deported. This is not our fight. Latinos voted for Trump. So, F around and find out. And we wondered how much of that was actually just sort of propaganda. It began to look like us, and still does, like the same kind of propaganda efforts that we saw during the campaign, where Black accounts would start telling Black folks, oh, stay home, this election doesn't matter, it's not important for our community. It looked like propaganda. So we wanted to ask Black folks, is this fight against deportation and ICE our fight, or is it not? And people overwhelmingly said that it was, because of course, when masked men start showing up in our neighborhoods, and I'm in Los Angeles, so our neighborhoods are integrated here. So when masked men are showing up in our neighborhoods, snatching people off the street and disappearing them, right, kidnapping them, of course that's Black folks' fight, because we know what that is. And so we wanted to make sure that we were clear, and that other people were clear, that there was public, data about how Black people actually feel, and not just the accounts on social media. But I think that you're right as well. People are looking for ways to figure out how to engage. People want to engage. They know that we need to be in this fight, and they want, certainly from the existing organizations, but also new efforts, right, that are coming around. We see all of the protests that are happening, et cetera, that we're seeing folks engaging in. But we also want to, I think that people are clear that protests aren't the only way for Black people to show that they are resisting, and people are looking for guidance.
One of the things that your poll also looks at, and I have been talking about this, and I graduated from Texas A&M in 1991, and I've been looking at this even when I was there, and when I was on CNN, I was on TV One, on Tom Joyner Morning Show. People kept telling me I was crazy, and I'm like, I'm trying to tell y'all. I said, as each year progresses, you're going to see African Americans less self-identify as Democrat, which means that Democrats have to work harder to keep those folks in the fold. Well, your poll shows it. Baby boomers, folks 61 to 78 years old. Come on, guys, go to my iPad. It shows you they are the orange line. Well, right there, it shows July 2025, 72% self-identify as Democrats. If you look at Gen X, that's my group, that's 59%. That's a 13-point gap. Well, if you go to millennials, that's the next generation, 29 to 44, it's an 11-point gap. But here's what jumps out. It was only from the moment Vice President Kamala Harris got the nomination in August of 2024, it was a 2% drop from then to now among baby boomers, a 5% drop by Gen X between then and now, but a 13% drop from millennials. And so if you're a Democrat running for Congress next year, for the United States Senate, if you're Senator John Ossoff in Georgia, whoever's going to be the Democratic nominee in North Carolina or in any other states, what this poll says to every, and I'm being very specific, to every white Democratic strategist, every white media buyer, if y'all think you are going to win by spending the same amount of money and time on Black people, you're crazy. I have been arguing, they got to spend 3 to 4 times as much money to target Black folks, to invest in Black folks, because they're saying, hey, it ain't guaranteed. It doesn't mean they may not vote Democrat, but the self-identification part is a significant predictor as to whether or not they will turn out and vote.
A lot about how people feel about Democrats that we saw in other parts of the poll as well, right? So it says a lot about, whether or not people feel like Democrats are taking their vote for granted. And that was a question in the poll, and people said, yes, they feel like Democrats take Black folks for granted, right? So this is and I think that we've seen this trend. So you're right, you talking about how far you were going back saying this to folks. We've been seeing this in our polling over the last, 9 years that BlackPac has been doing polling, is that people are identifying less and less. And to your point, it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't support Democrats. It means that they question whether or not Democrats are actually the party for Black people. Now, to also be clear, they don't think the Republicans are. So right. That's not they're not going.
And that's where the option then becomes either you're going to support the Democratic candidate or you're just going to check out.
That's right, and that is a lot of what we saw in 2024, right? When we think about the numbers of folks who did not show up, and we know that was again those decisions to stay home happened early. Some of it because people were being inundated by right-wing propaganda, mis and disinformation campaigns that had been going on for years at that point. And so, the point that you made, which is accurate, when we think about the resources that we need to spend to be able to help folks understand, and feel good about showing up and turning out because it's going to make a difference. Those resources need to increase, but they also need to start sooner. So anybody in the Democratic right now who thinks that they can wait until 2026
Nope.
start resourcing both communications and even door-to-door conversations with Black folks, you are sadly mistaken, because Republicans are in people's social media feeds right now. And if folks think that they can wait, they're just setting themselves up and setting the country up for another catastrophic failure.
Now, before I go to my panel, what jumps out at me, which I see as an opportunity, is this next slide. It says top box motivation has not changed for older voters, but rose prior to the election for younger voters. While Gen X and millennials have seen their motivation return to off-year levels, motivation has interestingly continued to rise for Gen Z. You look at this chart right here. It's about the same for baby boomers, 90%. Gen X, Gen X is gone from 80 to 77, down to 70, up to 79, up to 90, down to 78. You see millennials, 76, 69, 66, 62, jump to 80, down to 66. But my God, June of 2024, Gen Z, 18 to 28, was 52%. Today, 76%. That is a huge, and so again, I know you're looked at with your 12 and 11, but I'm going back to that from year to year. You're talking about Gen Z jumping 24 points. You look at millennials jumping 4 points. You look at Gen X dropping 1 point, and you look at baby boomers going up +3. What that says is that, and again, I'm gonna bring in Mamdani in New York. When you see that 24% jump among Gen Z, that means that they are engaged, but you better be speaking to them and they see what's happening policy-wise and how it's impacting them. So Democrats, if they were smart, they have an opportunity where if you take millennials and Gen Z, they represent the largest demographic in the country. They've surpassed baby boomers. They better understand they're ready, but as you just said, you got to talk to them.
You got to talk to them, and you got to talk to them about the things that they care about, not the things that you want them to care about. And that's part of the problem, I think, that we saw across within the poll across segments of the Black electorate. Folks are very clear about the issues that they care about. They run the gamut. They care about voting rights. They are worried that rights are going to be stripped. They're concerned about the decisions that the Supreme Court is making. They're concerned about the rollback of even policies that we saw, the Biden administration put in place. So you have to talk to them about issues that they care about and not try and force them into some really small box that's going to shut them down. And I think that, when this poll also revealed to us, like, that this was not a poll that was, it wasn't a messaging poll. It wasn't a poll to try and move people. But what we saw was that by the end of the poll, we asked the question at the top, how motivated were folks to vote? When we asked the question again at the end, we saw an 18% increase in motivation to vote. And that's just because the poll talked about issues that they cared about. So this is with us doing, just having a straight conversation with voters. We saw a shocking kind of increase in the number of people who moved to say, yes, I am now motivated to vote after just listening to a pollster on my phone ask me about these issues. So yes, focus on the things that people care about, have real conversations with them, because people are ready. They know what the stakes are. I think Black voters before the election certainly were saying, we understand the devastation that a second Trump administration will bring to this country and to our communities. We were the constituency, the group of Americans who were most clear about what a second Trump administration would mean. And I think people are clear about it now, and they're fighting. And what we're seeing in terms of those two age demographics in particular, they are leading the resistance, as young people always have historically in this country and for our community.
Let's go to the panel. Niambi, you first.
Yeah, so when you were talking about the other issues that people care about, what really seems, is there a singular issue that seems to be motivating people or keeping people away? Because I mean, outside of real issues with the party, what are the things that people feel are being missed or overlooked?
Adrianne, before you answer that, pull up the screen, y'all. So while she answers that, this is, despite growing angst, Trump continues to be seen as the top threat. And so what's on the screen, Adrianne, are the threats to the African-American community. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is important because this is the question that I was saying that we've been asking folks over the last few election cycles. And so the issues that are in there that I think are important are the lack of economic opportunity, the lack of educational opportunity. We see a real concern around Social Security, not just among older generations. And that was a little bit surprising to us. So Social Security is a huge issue. People are concerned about their future. Obviously, people are concerned about crime. But there are, I think the educational issues are the ones that stand out in a way. In addition to, there's a whole list, and this is why it's hard. The issues that people care about are many, and they are. People feel like when we look at, for example, we ask the question about what are the things that Trump has done that people care about most. And all of them were top box issues, right? People care about the erasure of Black history. Right. People care about the federal workforce being laid off. And that's certainly tied into this sort of, eroding of economic opportunity. People care about the Department of Education being dismantled. The things that Trump has been, the military, using the military, right, to come into our streets. People care about a whole host of issues. The question I think, is are they going to speak to those issues, or are they going to be afraid to talk about those issues because they think they're going to lose white voters?
Larry.
Yeah, it's really interesting in terms of some data points. You talk about the Democratic Party and where kind of people are, the Black community are shifting, so to speak. Can you talk a little about any questions related to, leadership, particularly we talk about Schumer and Congressman Jeffries. Were any of the questions that related to specific, Democratic leaders in terms of their vision and how members of the Black community are feeling about, Black leadership, even members of the CBC?
Yeah, we had a thermometer question that we always have, which is essentially how do folks feel about particular leaders. And I would say that in that thermometer, there should be some real concerns again for Democrats. I think that Democrats in Congress.
Adrianne, we're showing it right now.
The thermometer was fairly low for Democrats overall. I think Senator Schumer's numbers were lower than they have been in our previous polls. I think that of course Trump and Republicans' numbers are completely bottomed out, right? But the one thing that I think was somewhat surprising to us, I won't say completely surprising to us, but somewhat surprising to us, was the thermometer for Representative Jasmine Crockett. Her thermometer numbers were approaching Obama levels, and it was pretty surprising to us how high she was. She was second behind Obama in terms of the people's feelings toward her and her leadership.
All right, so hold on, I'm trying to find that. Let's see, where is that? Where is it? I'm looking here. Which part of the slide was that specific?
I'm not. Let me look.
Hold on, I'm looking. I see dim traits. I see angst, because I don't see anything specific to candidates, because I do want to show that.
Not candidates necessarily.
No, I'm sorry, not candidates, but I'm looking for those names: Schumer, Jeffries.
Well, I may be giving you all a tidbit that we didn't share in the deck that we sent.
Adrian, you got to share that with us. I'm looking for it. I'm like, hold up.
I'm scrolling myself. I'm revealing trade secrets here.
you need to send that to me then, so I can see what you're talking about.
I'll send it. But it is. I mean, I think that the question about how people feel about Dem leadership, I would say that the numbers are lukewarm to cool, and so that's not a good sign for them for most of Democratic leadership.
Larry.
Oh, I think I asked my question already.
I'm sorry. I'm a Congo.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much, Adrianne, for this work. It's really great to see, and I look forward to reading in more in detail. What do you feel are the top two issues for the younger generations? Roland just said that, the Gen Zs and millennials are the largest voting bloc right now. But so many people look at the Black vote and just say they're all concerned about race at every level. Are they as concerned as Gen Xers and Boomers? Are there one or two other issues that are bigger for them right now?
So I would say that it is really the things that I said before. Folks are concerned about racism and the rise in white supremacy and all that means, right? That means many things in terms of the way that shows up. So folks are concerned about that. They are also concerned about the rollback of rights in general. They are concerned about these ICE raids and deportations. They are, and I think we see some of the activism that follows that concern. Like we've seen that, on news reports, right? Like they're out there. So I think that there really is, and they're certainly concerned about economic opportunities as well. And I don't want to, short sell the fact that people are deeply concerned about the economy. I think the direct question about the economy is a reflection of people's deep anxiety and worry and concern about the future. That is true. But this idea that the country has turned into a version of the United States of America that they have only read about in textbooks and might not be able to read about them in textbooks again, right? But the fact that the country seems to be, going into factory, reset and returning to its original, form is a thing that I think the two younger generation, but certainly Gen Z, is deeply concerned about, because again, if you think about their trajectory, right, their sort of history in this country, it's been very much up and down. I mean, they were coming of age, or they were younger when there was Obama, and then they got Trump, and then they got every other week a video of, as you all were talking about earlier, of Black folks being murdered by police, and so they are they have a real completely legitimate worry that the country that we are currently sitting in is a reflection of some historic past that they did not have any idea that they would ever have front. And in some ways, their opinions, they're under what they express as their understanding of the world and what needs to be done, or of the country and what needs to be done, matches a lot the opinions and concerns of boomers. And so the reason why that's important is because it is that legacy generation who lived that era. And so Gen Z and our legacy generation at many data points are kind of meeting, right? And we've seen that over the last couple of years in our polling.
All right, so I'm throw this one out here. So it says nearly 2/3 of voters prefer a Democrat standing up for our rights, but a significant minority of millennials opt for Democrats to be less woke. Now, y'all have here, it says less woke. It says Democrats are too caught up in identity politics and wokeness. They need to stop spending so much of their time fighting these so-called culture wars and trying to protect the rights of certain groups and instead focus on economic issues. and a plan to help the working class. Democrats need to stay focused on the economic issues of the working class first, and worry less about peripheral groups. Now, I'm looking at this, and it doesn't specify, but I'm gonna say what I think this is based upon conversations that I've had people all across the country. Right there, when you see that 17%, because you're talking about that green space right there, that's the 17%. And then when you break that down, correct me if I'm wrong, down here, that's much more likely Democrat A, less woke, and is much more likely Democrat A, less woke. When I look down here, it says total 17%, Gen Z 13, Millennial 21, Gen X 18, Boomers 14. But right here is the key. Men 25, cool on Dems 24. Okay, what they're saying right here, and maybe you already have it, they're actually saying trans. That's what when they're talking about less woke, peripheral groups, identity, Adrianne, is that who they're talking about? Because that's what I've heard a lot of people talk about, but people don't really want to say it, but that's what
I don't think so. So, and the reason why I say that is because there's another slide, and I will not be able to find the number for you, but there's another slide where we ask which are the executive orders and other actions that Trump has taken,
right,
that concern you the most. And so there's a whole bunch of them, and they're all top box. The one that is not top box is trans athletes.
So when they say, no, I don't mean trans athletes. So when they say less woke, what does that mean?
So I actually feel like so I will say this. I will say a couple of things about this. One, I think we need to actually dig deeper into what that is.
Yes, we do.
Right? So we need to dig a little bit deeper into what that means, what people are actually talking about. I would say that based on the other kinds of questions that we ask in this poll, my assertion would be that they are actually focusing more on that economic piece because millennials have high economic anxiety.
Right.
So I think that they're probably focused more on that economic piece than potentially on the culture wars, but people define culture wars differently as well, and so it could be that that they are concerned about whatever the sort of culture wars that Republicans define, right? It could be that they're concerned about hearing Democrats also following suit on some of those Republican lines of argument, right? Could be that. I mean, I think we would need to dig deeper, but I think that the other point that's important here is that they stand out from everyone else, right? I think this is the point that you're making. They stand out from everyone else.
Well, I was making the point because even when I look at a lot of these white Democrats, when they talk about it, they always, less woke, less woke. I always go, okay, what you talking about? What you talking about? And see, nobody ever wants to actually say that. And in conversations that I've had with men and women and different people, what often comes up is Democrats spend way too much time on trans. And when you look at that, ad, when Trump's ad utilizing Charlemagne and DJ Envy polls second highest, when I looked at that 25% of being men, that's one of these things. And so whenever I see the idea of be less woke, I always go, okay, I need folks to name what that is. Not the phrase, but name what that is, because a lot of times folk don't want to name it. They say it, but they don't really want to name it.
Yeah, I think that when I hear Democrats and Republicans say less woke, I think they're talking about black people, right? I think they're talking about...
But in this case, this is black people, though. So when black people say less woke, I wonder what we're talking about.
Yeah, point well taken. And again, I think that the question for me that requires more digging, right, is what are people saying? And are they talking about specific issues that are being defined,
right,
by Republicans and some Democrats, or are they saying that they don't want Democrats talking about those issues, right? I think that's an unclarity for me. The other data point I will say is that when asked the direct question about whether or not people care about trans issues, and specifically the issue of trans athletes, that was the thing that people cared about the least in terms of the things that Trump has done.
Yeah, I see that, because based upon the Trump EOs, and so it's a whole lot to unpack. in this, but it really is important for people to do that. Hold on. Here's right here. It says positive traits. Black voters are seeing Democrats fight for other groups more than for their own community and concerns. They want to see Democrats fighting for them just as much as for other people. And then fight for women, it says 87% totally agree. Fight for LGBTQ plus, 85%. Fight against racism, 42%. Fight for Hispanic, 36%. Fight for African Americans, 29%. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people believe that the issues that even the things that I've talked about here, that Democrats aren't standing up for those things. That they're walking away from them. And I also think that we're hearing, in the mainstream media, we're hearing Democrats say things like that.
Yeah.
You're hearing them talk about, we're not going to talk about these issues. You heard Nancy Pelosi saying the other day that, the Epstein files was a distraction and they just need to talk about bread and butter issues. When in fact, if part of Democrats' central argument for why Trump shouldn't be president is that he is depraved and unfit, then this question around the Epstein files is central to that argument, right? And so I think this idea that somehow Democrats can just reduce, and we saw this after 2016 as well, this idea that we just need to talk about the economy and everything will be fine because Black people will vote for us and white folks who have gone over to the other side will come back. We know that's not true because we know that that's not the totality of people's lives. People want to be able to, first of all, have hope and some aspiration that America will be the America that they were promised that it would be. And that includes equality, and it includes fairness, and it includes justice. And if Democrats aren't talking about those kind of core central values, then it appears that they are fighting for other people and not for the Black community.
Last point here. I sound like a Baptist preacher. I'm going to close 3 times. Let me find it right here because it jumped out at me in terms of where you're getting information from. It says here, first of all, before I go to this, people need to understand the breakdown here. It was really close in terms of when y'all had Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, baby boomers. And I think in the poll, if I go to the slide, y'all probably had more millennials in this percentage than anybody else. So it wasn't weighted more towards baby boomers. But it says here, in terms of, this is what I need people to understand. We start talking about information because you got to know where they're getting it from. According to your poll, social media sites for information, YouTube is number 1, 86%, Facebook 69%, Instagram is 60%, TikTok is 46%, X, Twitter is 22%, and then you go Twitch, Blue Sky, Substack. So for everybody out there who keeps going, oh, YouTube and especially Facebook, that's what all them old people.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 largest where they're getting information from. That's critical. And then let's see, here was another one. Blue Sky users are slightly warmer to Democrats, while Twitch users are cooler. Why is that important? Because Twitch also, a lot of young folks, a lot of gamers. That's kind of important. Then it says YouTube is the most used app across all groups. Progressives must take the battle to the GOP, particularly in this space. Now, why is that important for everybody who's watching? Because somebody sent me this a little earlier today. When you talk about growth among, y'all just give me a second because I got 3 devices working at one time. So I want y'all to understand, Maxwell, let me pull this person up. Somebody sent me this tweet earlier of this individual, and it showed the most growth on YouTube in the past 3 months. Now, the first 3 months of this year, we were in the top 20. But that's cooled off some. Now, I don't necessarily believe all of these people are real because this person was getting a ton of money from the Russians. And so, but this says fastest growing political and political adjacent YouTube channels by net new subscribers. And so you see right here, okay, right winger Benny Johnson, 1, Fox News, 2, Charlie Kirk, 5, Joe Rogan, 6, Tim Pool, another person was getting money from Russia, is 8. Turning Point USA, 9. Tucker Carlson, 10. Sean Ryan, 12. And then Asmongold. So if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 of those top folks, all right wing. And so the reality is their numbers are blowing up on YouTube because they made a very concerted effort. They also cross-pollinate in terms of sharing information. And when you talk about investment from groups in terms of advertising or whatever, they are feeding those channels, which allows for them to market, improve their product. And the reality is progressives aren't doing that at all. If I pulled up right now the YouTube chart that showed you, the top 100 YouTube shows, what people are going to see is they're going to see a lot of right wingers in the top 20, in the top 100, because that's who's driving it. And so folks just need to understand what's going on here in terms of the ideological battle that's happening on YouTube right now.
That's right. And you could see across the board, it's the top, app that people are using. It is a place where, there is a battle happening, and we are losing. And we know that our people, it isn't just that our people are also watching those shows. I mean, when we did, our focus groups earlier in the year, we asked people what shows they watch, what were they watching on social media, who were they following on Instagram and TikTok, and on YouTube, they're watching Joe Rogan. Right. And it isn't that they're still voting for Democrats, or they're still turning out, but they're getting that information. Right. So it's shaping people's understanding. And again, when we talk about misinformation and disinformation and propaganda, when it shows up in that way, like we ask people, do you go to these places to get political information? And folks said no. But the issue here is that the ads are coming up while they're watching these shows.
And in fact, they're doing it to us. In fact, people don't understand, the right wingers are buying ad space on YouTube to show up on this show.
Yes.
And this is, and for all you Simple Simons out there who were bitching and moaning when the Kamala Harris campaign did $350,000 in advertising with us, when it should have been actually 3 times that much for all y'all who are tripping. Folks were like, oh yeah, you taking $350,000 from them. Oh, well, guess what? That same Benny Johnson I showed, he was getting hundreds of thousands through a Russian front company every month. Tim Pool was doing the exact same thing. The Republicans dump advertising money into all of these shows. So people don't even understand the game, Adrianne. Folks need to understand this right here is a YouTube weekly top podcast for July 7th through the 13th. Remember that guy who cracked all of those racist jokes at the Trump Madison Square Garden rally, and he got reamed? That's Kill Tony. He is #1 for this week on YouTube. Joe Rogan is 2. Progressive Midas Touch is 3. Then you see 48 Hours. You see all of a sudden you see Sean Ryan, Tucker Carlson. You see progressive Brian Tyler Cohen. Then all of a sudden, right-winger PDB right here. A right-winger Theo Vaughn. Right-winger Megyn Kelly, right-winger Tim Cass, the Vori Darkins. Then you see, you can go on and on and on. And now, for African Americans, I need people to pay attention. Highest ranking, well, first, I don't know who this DeVory Dawkins is, but Gilbert Arenas, he's 21, sports. Club Shay Shay is 24. Then you keep going. Let's see here. People need to understand. Carmelo Anthony, number 34. Tim Pool is a right winger. He has 2. He's at 36. The Pivot podcast, number 40. Sports Guys, 85 South Comedy Show. The Comedic Brothers out of Atlanta, right there. 5 Club 520 podcast, 520 in the morning, African American as well. All right, so you keep going. Joe Button, 59. And I'm not criticizing them. I'm just showing people the numbers. These are the numbers. Then all of a sudden you keep going. Right winger Ben Shapiro. Now, that's us at 78. We are the only black news show the only black non-entertainment sports show in YouTube's top 100. So to your point, where are black people getting their information from? It's from other people, because on March 4th, when we did our special, The State of Our Union, we showed our power. 250,000 people watched us live. If I look right now, it's 3,400. So where are the other 247,000 that are watching March 4th? So when we say, hey, we don't have the information, we're watching sports and entertainment.
That's right. And this is the whole game, right? This is the whole game. We wonder why millions and millions of black folks stayed home, is because they were getting information that suggested from all these different podcasts and the ads that were coming across all their social media feeds that they should stay home. And what there wasn't was a robust counter narrative coming through shows that care about our people, right? That care about our future, that want to make sure that our community is informed. Those shows, yours, of course, right, stands out. But why don't we have an ecosystem that is informing people, and not just the black community, right? Other communities as well. Why don't we have a similar ecosystem? Why is it not being invested in? Why do people take it for granted? Why do people think they can wait to the last minute and just put ads up on traditional television where no one is watching? Certainly not the voters that we need to turn. Certainly not the folks that we need to be informed so that they can be engaged. It is a total mismatch. It is malpractice in terms of people who say that our democracy is so important that we need to do everything that we can, and yet we are willing to give away the information ecosystem.
And the last one here, since y'all dropped your poll, how many media outlets have booked y'all to discuss it?
That'd be you. And I think that this is the same question you asked me with the last poll, and I had to say that would be you.
And folks, this ain't about ego while I'm asking that question, because I'm trying to explain to y'all this the problem. Since Joy's show got canceled on MSNBC, how many NBC shows are booking Adrianne to discuss the BlackPac poll? And here's the crazy thing. Your poll was done by Cornell Belcher, who's an analyst for NBC.
Yes.
So I need people watching to understand that if you do not have black-owned media, the reality is this BlackPac poll, folks would see it if it's on social, because the very shows are not booking. So radio shows should be talking about this and others, but the problem, and I said this when Tom Joyner retired, I said this, and that was part of the reason why I launched this show. I said, when we lose the Tom Joyner morning show, we're going to lose a major cog that drove black news and information across the country. And I don't care, y'all can talk all y'all want about the Breakfast Club and all the rest of these shows, but if you take the Breakfast Club, Ricky Smiley, D.L. Hughley, Erica Campbell, Steve Harvey, and put all the black syndicated shows together, combined, they do not do as much black news and information as the Tom Joyner morning show did. And so, to Adrianne's point, if we do not have the black media ecosystem that's driving our messaging out, so we got to support and invest in shows like this. And that's why we got 4 other shows, because I can't be every damn where, but it's a dearth of information that we are facing.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
Great job with the poll. We'll push this out on social. Adrianne, thanks a lot.
I appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. You know, I can't make this point enough, Niambi, and I need people to really understand. Go back to my iPad. When you look at this top 100, I'm gonna start with 100. Rubin Report, guess what? Right winger. Nancy Grace, right winger. Young Turks, progressive, but they all over the place these days. Will Kane Country, Fox News, right winger. I mean, you start going up this list, and it is a ton of right wing people. And again, it's not being arrogant or cocky, but we're the only in the top 100. And we were off and on for the past couple of weeks. We were on 1 week, off 1 week, but us at 78. Yo, there's no, outside of sports entertainment, there's nobody else black.
Mm-hmm. And I think you highlighted something that's really important, Roland, is the dearth of Black media. I mean, with the exception of a few stations, you can think about folks like Harold Fisher and WHUR, but clearly there aren't many. And when we think about how local media has just been hollowed out, there are even fewer outlets. And one thing I will say about conservatives, they have long understood the media environment and have made themselves or availed themselves of everything, whether we're talking about radio with Rush Limbaugh in his day, and even the televangelists, right? They had networks. They had that whole messaging from records to video. I mean, like they understood that they might not win on the numbers, but if they can get people's ears and they can get their eyeballs and they can get in their mind, then they can do some things, and they've moved the needle politically. I mean, the Dobbs decision didn't just come out of thin air. That was 60 years of campaigning that happened on conservatives. So they've been innovators for a very long time in the media space, and they were early adopters of social media and being online and being perpetually and chronically online, bringing people to these different platforms, from YouTube to the podcast. So, I mean, this is part of the reason why I think Republicans have been so successful through the years, because on the numbers, most people don't want what their politics are. But they have been able to draw enough people in with a convincing message. They know how to stay on message, and they are extraordinarily disciplined. And they sprinkle themselves throughout so many environments, from school boards to radio and TV and everywhere else in between. And I think the thing about conservatives is they leave no stone unturned, whereas Democrats will still leave things on the table. Conservatives don't take for granted that people are just going to be persuaded by policy, right? I mean, most people don't like their policies, but they like their messaging about their policies. And that's what gets them every time.
On the Congo, I remember discussing this story. This story here dropped January 4th, 2020. And it was in the New York Times. And it was right-wing views for Generation Z, 5 minutes at a time. Dennis Prager launching PragerU, a fake university. But Candace Owens came through there. The story showed, and I remember sending this to progressives saying, y'all better pay attention. And the story laid out how they raised their whole goal was to, they said they were trying to do, they did 1 billion views their first year, how they went out and targeted Hispanics and others, how they went out and raised $7 million from a couple of billionaires from Texas. And an article laid all of these things out. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull up another story. And what was interesting about this story, when you were reading it, was what their goal was, and again how they were going to build it. And people were like, "Yeah," I'm like, "Okay, I'm telling y'all." And guess what we now see? We now see PragerU content for kids now in schools, because Republicans control them in Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, and others. And so they raised $22 million their first year, $25 million their second year. That's real. And I said to progressives, y'all are running around here trying to make movies and animated film. They saw YouTube as the power long ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's almost like following Miami's point. It's almost like YouTube is the new AM radio for them, because they dominated back in the days with AM.
No. YouTube is ABC, NBC, CBS for them, because YouTube is the largest video platform in the world. They are bigger than Netflix.
I didn't realize they're bigger than Netflix.
They're bigger than Netflix.
Wow. But going to your point on PragerU, I show PragerU videos in my intercultural communication class every semester to let our students understand what their propaganda is all about. And to go to your point further with them, PragerU is now partnering with the Department of Education to produce videos on the founding of America for America at 250 years. So that's how deep this fake university, this fake organization is going. The Republicans do not play as it relates to propaganda. They do not miss an opportunity to get out there and control the message. Even if you go on YouTube right now, you got all of these people, guys like me, who speak on like diversity, equity, and inclusion and things like that. But if you type it into YouTube, like the first 25 videos are going to be something about from like Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. It's going to be anti-DEI folks. That's how prolific they are with what they're doing. And the fact that we're spending so much time looking to be entertained on these platforms, it shows the dirt where the real problem is. And I'm hoping that this survey, that the study that the sister did with Cornell can get out more, so people can really start understanding that all of these networks out there, they're training their eyes on YouTube, the Instagram, the Facebook, and our young people are still going there. If we do not learn the lesson now, seeing what Joe Rogan and all of these other guys are doing, we can easily be in those spaces crushing it. If we could just be half as serious as you are with the Black Star Network, we can make some real changes. And PragerU is another example of their propaganda machine on full blast. We should have paid attention when you said we should have.
This is what folks are not getting, Larry. Go to my iPad. Streaming services captured 44.8% of all television viewership, while traditional broadcast and cable networks combined for 44.2%. The broadcast networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, accounted for 20.1% of the viewership. They lost to cable, which was at 24.1%. So folks need to understand that more people are watching streaming networks. They are streaming content more than they're watching cable and broadcast. And of the network streaming, YouTube is number one. That's first. The second point, which we've been trying to get people to understand here, Larry, is that why investment matters. All right? We ain't had PragerU got 22 million its first year, 25 million its second year. That's $47 million they got to build their network. They hit 1 billion views its first year. Well, hell, when you raise 22 million and you can hire the engineers who are studying the algorithm, who can pump the content out, you can actually do this. And so that's what happens. We ain't had, listen, our fan base has contributed $4.3 million in 7 years. You look at what we've generated with advertising, it don't even come close to no 22 million. But we've been building it and making do. The point I'm making is this is an arms battle, and progressives, African Americans, liberals, everybody want to put in that category, completely misunderstanding what's going on. And while we as Black people are giving money to Zeus Network and we're watching all of these entertainment and sports networks, they are focused on news and information. And that's one of the reasons why people are ill-informed about what's going on, because as our promo where Jeff Carr says, bring your eyeballs home. Wherever our Black eyeballs go, that's where our attention goes. That's where our money goes.
Mm.
Yeah, you really highlighted some really important points. And one thing I want to talk about, you just talked about the PragerU in terms of the money. The relationship between the misinformation, be it whatever, platforms, YouTube, et cetera, X, and the wealth gap in America. Roland, you talked about PragerU getting all this money. I remember PragerU a few years ago was just some kind of, concept or idea. I never thought it would reach the heights it has reached right now. And like you said, many states and working with the federal government. But the point you highlighted needs to be clear to those who are watching in terms of the actual resource gap, in terms of what people who have the resources are investing in. Listen, we have, certainly there's, like I said, there's a wealth gap between Black and whites, but there are a lot of Black folks who have enough resources to contribute to your platforms and to support other opportunities to put information out there to make sure the Black community is well informed. But we're not seeing that. And what are some of the implications? We just saw what you highlighted. You've talked about a lot the last couple of days, in particular, in terms of the number of Black people who didn't vote. And now what we're doing with in terms of the challenges the Black communities encounter and will continue to encounter over the next couple of years. Listen, we've lost the platform in the misinformation battle, but we can't afford to lose the war, because the challenges we're dealing with are going to be ongoing and generational. So you're playing catch up. So you have to make sure, once again, like you said, Roland, the resources, and we had to make sure that platforms like yours continue to have the resources they need to put out a counter to a lot of the misinformation that a lot of Black folks are getting. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people that I know or encounter that I have to tell them that some information they came across, particularly during the election, is not accurate. And so we're seeing a lot of, even with college educated Black folks, it's not about educational background. This is about the platforms you consume and the misinformation that you're being fed and that you believe without checking second, third, and fourth sources. So we need to continue to invest in platforms like you. But this misinformation, it is widespread among Black folks of all backgrounds.
So here's what people need to understand. And this is a perfect example. Damian Foster just puts in our group chat, you need to train someone or a group of someones. You do know we have other shows on the network. That's what we've been doing. We've had other shows that we canceled because, frankly, they weren't moving the needle. So I need people to understand what's going on here, okay? And I have been talking about this ad nauseum so our people understand the ecosystem, okay? To understand what's going on here. The reality is everything that you see costs money. If you're watching the show right now, the lighting of the show looks different. It does. Give me a wide shot. The lighting of the show looks different. Why is that? Because we just finished, don't give me a wide shot give me a wide shot. The lighting looks different because give me this shot and give me the other, give me the camera facing that way. So the lighting that you're seeing right here was a $70,000, give me to the other camera that's facing the set piece. You're seeing a $70,000 lighting upgrade. That's what you're seeing, okay? That lit the news desk, lit the set piece over there, that also lit our green screen. That was $70,000. While that was happening, we were doing a $40,000 IT upgrade in here as well, okay? We're looking at our robotic cameras where we got 10, 12, so the question is how many more do we need? So why am I explaining all of that? Because that's money. That's money. In order for you to build a network, you got to have infrastructure. Infrastructure means studio, it means staff, it means equipment, it means all of those different things as well. So when you're competing against, again, a Benny Johnson who got hundreds of $1,000s from Russia through a front company, and him and Tim Pool, I'll just give y'all an example. I'm gonna pull it up right here. Let's see here. This was a PBR, how Russia covertly hired US influencers to create viral videos. Yep, all of these people were named, $10 million. Okay, these two Russia Today staffers funneled $10 million to these various right-wingers to produce these videos. That's just, it was actually in an indictment. Right there. Look at this here. Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, David Rubin, Lauren Southern. All these videos that they did were being funded. Look at this here. One influencer was paid $400,000 a month. $100,000 signing bonus. And y'all, his was crazy. And an additional performance bonus in exchange for 4 videos a week. Y'all, that is 16 videos. That's all he did for $400,000 a month. Do the math. That's almost $5 million a year from that one funding source. So if I had a sponsor that was kicking us 400 grand a month, don't you think we would have more digital people pumping out content? We'll be able to spend money on ads and marketing to be able to boost. Need y'all to understand what's going on here. Now, expand this. The media business is driven by advertising. What happens when it comes to general market? We're talking Fortune 500 companies, all the commercials you see. $350 to $400 billion is spent every single year. Black-owned media gets 0.5 to 1%. That's all black-owned media. That's everybody that's black-owned media collectively gets that 0.5 to 1%. The federal government spends $1 billion a year on advertising. What does black-owned media get? 1% of that as well. So black-owned media is getting barely 1% of the $400 billion spent in general market, $1 billion of the federal government, and now when you talk politics, black-owned media got $22 million out of the more than $1 billion spent by the Harris campaign and the Future Forward Political Action Committee.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So when folks sit here and go, yeah, man, you should have took no 350,000. All black-owned media, 22 million out of more than $1 billion. I think it was $1.5 billion. So if black-owned media is not getting political advertising money, federal government advertising money, general market advertising money, well, please explain to me, how can we build and grow? Do y'all now see what I'm talking about? Now, when I talked about the 250,000 people who watch, I just need people to understand, this is math, y'all. This is just basic fundamental math. We had 250,000 people who watched us at our peak on March 4th, okay? That's 250,000. So imagine if 250,000 people were watching this show on a daily basis, okay? That's 250,000. Okay, if you're talking about 30 days over the course of a show, that's 7.5 million views. Actually, it's going to be way more than that as well in terms of how it's calculated. So if all of a sudden we're now doing 40, 50, 60 million views a month, all of a sudden you're now talking about generating 5 to 7 to 800,000 just on YouTube. So now if you're increasing your revenue there and you're getting these other advertising, so now all of a sudden, now just lay it out. If we were doing 10 million, I'm gonna mess y'all up. If we were doing $10 million a year in revenue, I'm just gonna say 10. There's an office right next door to us where we could actually put 10 production staff writers in there. So now all of a sudden, you would actually have folks who are writing stories, because you know we are completely retooling blackstarnetwork.com to drive content. Imagine if you then were able to hire 10 what we call predators, producer editors. And that is people who are digital specialists, multimedia folks, we call them one-man bands as well. And then we had them in 10 cities across the country. So we have a designated person in, let's say, Dallas, Houston, Charlotte, let's say a couple in New York, couple in LA, somebody, let's say 2 or 3 in Atlanta. Now, all of a sudden, your footprint now begins to expand. Now, when it comes to driving content, we can be like a lot of these other folks as well. That's at 10, 12 million a year. Now, imagine if we had PragerU money. See, I need people watching to kind of understand where I'm going here, because I'm trying to paint a picture that one of the reasons we have problems is because black-owned media is systematically frozen out of the marketplace. So when I talk about the 1% and how we get screwed by Publicis Advertising Agency and Group M and Horizon and Omnicom, and I can keep naming all of these ad agencies, and how they won't even return our phone calls, Dentsu, they won't even sit here and give us insertion orders or RFPs. We can go down the line. Then how do you think we're able to generate money and build staff? This is the problem. And when I talk about this, folks go, But if I post something that's gossipy on Instagram or social media, it'll get 20, 30,000 likes and 2, 3,000 comments. So I need black people to understand there's a reason Ebony is almost non-existent. They're trying to rebrand. Jet doesn't exist. There's a reason why Essence is a 3-day festival company and not the magazine it used to be. There's a reason that Black Enterprise basically doesn't even cover business anymore. They are a conference event company. There's a reason why you see fewer, you have 4 Black-owned talk stations in the country. That's it. 4. When you talk about, so the entire Black-owned media ecosystem that we were able to survive on and thrive on from the launch of the nation's first Black newspaper, Freedom's Journal, March 16th, 1827, going all the way through Frederick Douglass and the North Star, Ida B. Wells Barnett and her paper in Memphis that was firebombed, the Pittsburgh Courier, Chicago Defender, Atlanta Daily World, and on and on and on, going through Michigan Chronicle, going through Ebony Negro Digest, Ebony Jet, Emerge, Black Enterprise, all the way through. If you look at that history, that is virtually gone. Mm-hmm. And now we are in a position to where we are solely dependent on a small handful of folks. And for the most part, it's Shade Room, Hollywood Unlocked, Ball Alert, Jasmine Brand, that are Instagram pages and websites for information. And then people go, man, why didn't we know what was going on? Mm-hmm. Because Black-owned media has been absolutely systematically eradicated and decimated. And so I don't want to be sitting in this position when I'm 70. I don't want to sit, I'll be honest with y'all, I'm 57 in November. We've signed an 8-year lease. I don't plan to be sitting in this seat when I'm 65. But we have to be able to build, grow, and hire people and build them up. So over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, then their following will be like mine is right now. And we're trying to build an ecosystem. So when some of y'all bitch and moan about, man, you taking money from the Democrats. Well, Republicans damn sure weren't spending money. Oh, I take that back. Republicans were spending money on my show. They weren't paying me. They paid YouTube to run the ads during the commercial breaks on my show. So they value my show, my audience, but they like, no, we're going to pay YouTube. So I need everybody watching to understand we are in the position we're in right now, not by our choosing, but because there has been a wholesale destruction of Black-owned media by practicing economic apartheid by ad agencies and by major brands because they want us buying their products, but they don't want to invest in our media. Final round of comments from my panelists. I'll start with you, Niambi.
Well, I mean, I think you highlighted the sort of foundational problem that so many Black institutions face, especially the Black media, is that we need Black support to thrive. And a lot of people don't value Black media and certainly don't want to put money in the hands of Black media brands and companies. And I think it's really unfortunate, especially in this time when good information is so critical, right? I mean, one of the things your show talks about a lot is media literacy on a host of levels, not just how the media works, but how to be good consumers of media. This is why we need those Black spaces again, because so much of what we talk about now is driven by culture, right? Like about sports or entertainment. But these political issues that are ongoing, whether we're talking about police brutality or important bills that are happening, things that are germane to our community, only Black media are going to cover some of these stories. And that's why that media has sustained us and been so important for so long. And so, I mean, I think it's a really unfortunate circumstance, just listening, just thinking about all of these media outlets that don't exist anymore that I grew up on and that I had the privilege of getting to know.
Absolutely. Omekongo?
It's really sad the way you lay it all out. And, you talk about this so frequently, and particularly with the young folks coming up, it's like we say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. It's like, if you're not going to be involved in actively consuming information about Black people, about our culture, and getting it from Black sources, then you're going to be, victim to anything that's out there, and you're going to fall for all type of game. I see people talking about, Target boycotts and all of this, and they're getting the information from the most random sources. And people have to understand that if we're going to make some real headway in 2026 and 2028, I'm not even just talking about just politically. I'm just talking about in establishing ourselves in the dominant way that we should be in this culture. It's going to take Black information. We've not gotten this far without education and information. And if people think they're just going to do it building platforms and entertainment spaces and getting their residuals off of things like that, they're sadly mistaken. And that's going to be taken away from them too, because they're not going to be well informed enough to build a successful system. You're sitting here talking about you don't want to be here at 65. You want to have other people running the show. People don't have that long-term vision. And so people need to see this. They need to share it, because now is the time for us to really get on the good foot as it relates to how we control and dominate these information spaces. And like I said earlier, you laid out the blueprint. Other folks just got to follow it.
Larry?
Yeah, so let me say that when we talk about, counting misinformation, I think the panel I'm on right now, my esteemed colleagues, academics, and also authors. Listen, how often do you see three Black folks, like ourselves on your platform talking about issues that impact the Black community?
Well, first
You
of all,
don't
if
see
you're
it.
MSNBC, the only Black professor you're going to see is Eddie Glaude. Lawyer regularly, Charles Coleman. You'll see Melissa Murray, who's a legal professor. I mean, right. I need people to understand, if you actually sat down and started counting who's on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, yeah, we'll have more Black people in 48 hours than all of those networks will have combined for a week. Go ahead.
Exactly. And that's my point, Roland. Black folks like us, we don't get an opportunity all the time to really talk about our research, our work that relates to the Black community and its important impact. And so your platform this evening and throughout the week, having folks like, from, law or, journalists, et cetera, on the platform who are Black, who care about passionate about the Black community to unpack very important topics, you're just not going to get that. For the folks who are watching, go ahead and get in Cash App or checks or whatever you need to do, because that's the only way you're going to get this informed conversation from Black folks who care and have the background to talk about really important issues that impact the Black community.
Indeed.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.